Okay guys, welcome to the third tutorial, and what we are going to do here is we will start to work on our database and uh, data class, where we are going to assign the values that what values do we want the user to enter. Are they going to be string? Are they going to be, you know so all that stuff like we will do in this. We'll just create a simple nodes class, and we can use this data tags in order to make it like a data class. And this is basically an object that we are creating, but at the same time, let me just make it first and then I'll just explain to you. So what I'll do here is wall uh, title, node title, maybe node title. The type is going to be string. Wall node subtitle, type is going to be string. Wall node text, type is going to be string. And wall node id, and type is going to be integer. So what I'll do here is I'll just create I'll just add this annotation, because room database, if you are familiar with SQLite database, all kind of database, there are somewhat of tables that are related, tables that come. Okay, so that is why in database, on the background, it works in the shape and form of tables, where one column is for a certain item. So all that, so that is why what we are doing is that we are going to store our node id and the id corresponding to that node and title and all that. So I'll just name this nodes, and I'll just leave it there, and that's all I'll do here. Then I'll just come in here and create an interface, data object interface, nodes DAO, data access object. So I'll just annotate it as DAO, because this is also Android rooms annotation. And if once again, I'll just tell you that people used to use SQLite database before, but now Android, like, it's been like 2-3 years that Android has launched uh, this room database, where we can, it's a more robust and less boilerplate kind of code. And if you can, like, look at my previous tutorial, there are one or two tutorial and also the GitHub repository that uh, there was like 7 to 800 lines of codes, but now this way it's going to be really really like short codes that you can write for your database creation. So what I'll do is I'll just use some of the annotations of the room database that will help us insert and search through our list and all that. So let's start. And first of all, I'll just create a query. So what this will do is select from nodes, means this spelling of our table must meet 100% exactly to the entity table that we have created. So you cannot make a mistake here, and this is the function that we are creating to get all nodes. And what it will return is a live data list of the nodes. So all the nodes that are in this table are going to be returned through this method uh, as a form of live data, live list of live data. Okay, so this we have done. Now to insert, like when we are adding a node in the database, suspend fun, insert nodes. So we are just referencing that, okay, what are we adding? We are adding node, and obviously what that node includes, we just created that class here where we have added the id and all that. And while we are at it, one thing I forgot is that node ID and also primary key auto generate. So what we want is that this will be auto incremented when we add a node. The first node is going to be 0, then the second node is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, so these are the columns that I had to, like, I forgot to make, but what I'm doing is that I'm doing it here. So we are naming these like the columns that will include or keep or hold our data. So yeah, this is basically a table creation in like a loose language. What I have created is a table where I'm going to store my nodes. So each column must have a unique name, so we don't want to run into some conflicts. Okay, so again, to update, we can just go update nodes. Again, we are going to update our nodes through this. And for deleting, there is an annotation available for this also. Suspend fund delete nodes, and if we want to delete all nodes, then again query anything that you want to perform on the whole table, that whether you want to fetch from it or whether you want to delete from it, but you are doing it all together, not a specifically one. So then you need query annotation, or if you want a specific one, then there is another way where you can use the ID, but we are not going to go there. So what I'll just do is suspend fund delete. And if you're wondering where did this suspend came from, suspend function is part of like the Kotlin coroutine. So what this is doing is like in Kotlin coroutine, they can be like paused and resumed back from anywhere else in the code also. So yeah, so these are a little bit of a more advanced concept. So I think we'll get into those concepts at some time. So I'll just name this as notes database, and what I'll do here is I'll just copy paste the code, because mostly the codes for this are pretty much boilerplate, especially for this class. And yeah, so even if you are creating another project, you can use the code of this. Just you must change the names to the corresponding classes. What I'll do here is I'll just take the code from my previous project. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to replace this code, and if the spellings are correct, so this needs importing, we'll just import it. Okay, so we have the database ready, and yeah, this is all boilerplate, so you don't have to like really worry about it, but still I can explain it that this data access object must have a reference in the database, because then we will pass it to we'll work on it later. Okay, so database is done. Now what I'll do here is yeah, maybe I'll end this tutorial here, and what I'll just want to like change a little bit something in navigation graph, although I wanted to show you this because you might not understand this when I'm doing this now, but maybe just do it and remove it from your app later and see the change. So what I want to do is, like, in navigation component, when you are not using it, if you press a back button, then the app exits. But in fragments, when you are using navigation component, then fragments operate in a way where they are stacked upon each other. So if even if you press the back button, if you are for example in edit note, you would go to home fragment, but then you would come back again in the edit note. So this is kind of a little bit, you might understand it until you encounter this kind of error. So just to save time, I'm just going to solve it here. So yeah, again, I'll just repeat myself that when you are not using navigation component, then there is it's very easy to press back and go back to the previous activity. But when you are using navigation component and fragments, then it is difficult because then the fragments are stacked upon each other. So even if you press the back button, it will take you to the back fragment, but again launch the first fragment that you had initially clicked back on. So I have to add two lines of codes. Um, yeah, so in navigation graph we are going to add these. Mm, so yeah, let me just go to the edit note. Yes, here what I have to add here is app dot pop up to inclusive app pop up to home fragment. So this, once I am done writing the note, if I click back, then I would just go smoothly to the home fragment. Even I could go previously too without having to write these two, but then it would sometime launch the same edit fragment without me asking, just me pressing back button. Again, what I'll do here is I will go in the action of create fragment here. Yeah, now the error will not appear. If I click back button, then I would just come on the home fragment, and if I click back button again, then I would still like then yeah, maybe I will exit the app because for that I have to write the code. But if this is not in your code, then if you press a back button, then you are on the home fragment from edit fragment, and if you press it again, then you are in the edit fragment again, and that should not happen, right? So yeah, what we have done in this tutorial is that we have done our room database work, and we have created some methods that will help us to fetch data, add data, and delete data in our database. Okay, so I'll see you in the next tutorial.